Ready?
Yep, I'm ready.
Hello, everyone. Welcome again to another live stream with Comic Experience Publishing. I'm happy to be joined today again by Gannon Beck. His creator-owned comic Space Corps is coming out in October, and it's going to be ready to be ordered. The initial orders are due later this week. So if you're stopping by your comic shop today or tomorrow, be sure to bring up the comic to them. We also have the grand finale of Stud the Bloodblade coming out in October as well. So that initial orders for that are going to be due as well at the end of the week. So want to talk to Gannon and dive a little bit deeper into his background. We only really touched the surface of it in the last live stream that we did. But one of the things that's been really fascinating to me about your history has been you've done T-shirts. Correct me, keep me honest if I'm going to misdescribe this, but you've been doing T-shirt designs representing different Marine Corps units.
Right.
Yeah, I'd love to talk about how that got started, what inspired you, and if that somehow led to where we are today, where now you've got Space Corps coming out. And let me real quick actually share some of those designs. Oops.
There we go.
Okay.
Yeah. So basically, the way I got started is I was ordered to. I didn't have a lot of rank, and I could draw, and so my platoon sergeant came to me, and his name was Sergeant Strong, and he said, "Hey, Devil Dog, we need a unit T-shirt, and you can draw, so you volunteered." And so I did. So in fact, the one in the upper left-hand corner that you see there, the Marine breed design, that was the very first T-shirt design I had ever done. I did it for my unit. I think that's 1992. So it was a while ago. I drew that back when I was, 20 years old, I guess. 1992. So I did the T-shirt, and it came out really well, and everybody really liked it. And it's the first thing that I had ever had printed on anything. And then what happened is after that, I just kind of got a reputation for doing it, and I wasn't doing it as a business or anything like that. It was just one of those things that if you're an artist, you get a kick out of people liking your work at all. You're like, oh, hey, this is really cool. So like units like next to me saw our shirts, were like, well, hey, where'd you get that shirt? And they pointed them in my direction, so I started doing shirts for other units. Even while I was on active duty. And if you look at the Det 3 1995 one, that was my deployment shirt to Korea.
Mm-hmm.
So we did that one back in like 1995, I think. And then I got out of the Marine Corps in 1995. So this is just a couple months before I got out. And then even after I got out, people kept asking me, like, people that I served with kept asking me, hey, can you do T-shirts for us? And I was like, yeah, sure. And I did this for a number of years. I mean, not like a whole lot. Like, it wasn't like I was doing like, 20 or 40 a year or anything like that. But it was like, I'd have a friend that would, go, like to the basic school in Quantico, and, and somebody was like, hey, we need shirts. And everybody's like, hey, I know a guy. And it just kept going that way for a while till I hooked up with a printer that I really liked. And then I, just put it, like, I did this Marine Corps website from like 1998 till we published stories. I did a comic strip on it with a friend of mine, and eventually I was like, well, hey, other people might be interested. We put a little ad on, say, hey, anybody interested in doing unit shirts, just send us an email. And then people started, and it just kind of grew from there. But yeah, like it all started with I got volunteered for it. Or voluntold as it may be, but I was happy to do it. It was one of the best orders I was ever given, I guess.
And so you were saying that you actually developed this as part of a deployment. So were you creating different shirts for different deployments, and not just
Right. Yeah, well, that's what this was. So this was, we in 1995 we deployed to Korea, and at that point I was a sergeant, so like nobody was going to tell me to actually do it, but everybody was asking about it, and I was like, yeah, sure, I'd be happy to do it because it's fun, and again, I get a big kick out of getting my art printed. So the unit was stationed in Hawaii, but we deployed from Hawaii to Korea. And so I did that one, and I very fondly, like, I don't even have those shirts anymore. Like, they 1990s, they basically all the threads fell off and stuff like that. But I miss those shirts. Yeah.
Are there
So
any?
like, see the 37-cent stamp one? Like, if you go down just a little bit further, like, that one was done for Postal Affairs. That's the first person that contacted me. His name was Staff Sergeant Arredondo, just a real motivated Marine. Contacted me. It's the first T-shirt I did for somebody that I didn't serve with directly. Like, all the other ones were just kind of people who had the hookup with me because they knew me. But this is the first one that had been coming to our website, reading our comic strip, and was a big fan of just, we would do like illustrated sea stories and that sort of a thing. And he had asked us to do his T-shirt design, so we did that one, and it went around the world because it's Postal Affairs, and so everywhere where they had Postal Affairs Marines, they would get this T-shirt. And so the big thing for me was probably back in like so I did that one in 2003, and then in 2004 I got a call from Officer Candidate School. Again, like, somebody from Postal Affairs had become a drill instructor and went to Officer Candidate School for duty, and they had given me a call. And by that time I had done like one other shirt, because somebody had seen my dad was wearing one of the Marine breed shirts at Quantico, and Marines were getting their car wash, and somebody said, "Hey, where'd you get that shirt?" And he's like, "Oh, my son did it." And then I had done some shirts for some Marines at the basic school, where they basically had Marines running from Tun Tavern in Philadelphia to back to Quantico, and they had the miles measured out, that it was the exact same number of miles that the Marine Corps birthday was. And they ran it as a relay. I mean, they didn't run like 200 something miles like together, but they did a 200 something mile relay.
Yeah.
And so I just figured like the referral came from somebody there in Quantico. But what actually happened was that the person had gotten this shirt from Iraq, and found out where it came from, gave me a call, and I went down and been doing T-shirts for Officer Candidate School pretty much ever since. So it's been, I'm wrapping up, like, right now, my 17th year of doing T-shirts for pretty much, not pretty much every single class, not every single platoon. They can use whoever they want. But I do like 90 something% of them for the last 17 years. Yeah, like this cycle that I'm doing right now is the end of my 17th year.
And these are still, I think we were talking before we started that these are some of your earlier works.
Yeah.
From like over 10 years ago or so. Is there anything, I guess, was there a moment when you felt like your style was evolving at the more shirts you were doing?
It's, and the style is evolving all the time. But if you scroll down, like if you go to the original Postal Affairs, I mean, I can see things that I've learned, that once I learn them, you see things showing up in my work more than you don't see me working around my limitations. So as a really big example, when I first learned perspective, I had a hard time, like the source that I had did not teach how to do circles in perspective well. And so I would have to work around that limitation. So when you saw me draw like an M16 or something like that, I would draw it from the side. I'd basically draw a diagram of an M16, because if I had to pull it into perspective, I would do it incorrectly. So if you look at that first Postal Affairs one, you see exactly that. Like, that M16 is, like, I love that design still. I have a lot of affection for it, but that M16 is straight up trash, right? Like, I would never draw an M16 that way.
Now,
and you can see, like with the Postal. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
You would even see with like the other postal affairs ones, you would see you could see the improvement like from one to the next, because every time they updated the stamp, like how much, like the price of the stamp, the postal affairs guys wanted to get another t-shirt. So I did several for several years. And then like the people that I knew got off active duty, so I haven't done one in a while. I actually have one that's done that like only one or two people in postal affairs have seen at this point. But yeah, so like you see that one, like that's a much better M16 than the very first.
So how did we get from, or how did you get from doing this work to now doing sequential art and
Okay,
doing your own comic?
well, actually, the sequential art came first, right? Like, so what happened was a buddy of mine in high school were taking art together, and we had a teacher that really was not a fan of comic book art and the kind of art that we really loved. So we in the class we kind of got steered away from it, and taught, as far as I could tell, like I don't know if you've ever heard or read the book like Drawing on the Right Side of the Brain, but it was basically that was the instruction, which is very much about observational drawing. It's not about drawing things from your imagination, which is a very different skill than what's taught in that book. But it's what my buddy and I were really interested in. So as we're getting F's in this art class, we decided to come up with a project for each other where basically we were going to create. I was going to create a comic book for him. He was going to create a comic book for me, and we were going to give it to each other when we graduated. So that's what we did. So we did the comic, and what happened was the act of making comics, doing 4, 5, 6 panels in a page, close-ups, establishing shots, all different kinds of perspective, and you're pulling this stuff out of your head. That builds a certain kind of a muscle. And in fact, even with my comic, what happened was I got like 12 pages into it, and I started to get so much better even after 12 pages that I had to redo those 12 pages. I had to like start over with kind of like the skill that I learned with the first 12. And then we graduated, we gave each other the comic. So like we literally did a comic for like one person. And it was awesome. And we loved it and it was fun. But that got me to the point where I was kind of knocking on the door of being professional ready. I could do professional work, at least on occasion. And so when I got in the Marine Corps, and I get tasked to do different things, like in boot camp, you go to the range and they do like a special range flag that gets painted by one of the recruits. And because I could draw, I got tasked for that. And throughout my entire Marine Corps career, it was that sort of a thing where I would just get tasked for those sorts of things. But the funnest ones was the t-shirt design. And because I had done the comic book work, the t-shirts came out better than what people were used to. And that, like, if I didn't do the comic book work, I still probably would have done the t-shirts. It just wouldn't have been so good that other people would have cared and asked me to do it. So it attracted that expertise that I developed, attracted attention to my work, where like I was able to build a business out of it that I've been doing now for like 18 years. So yeah, but like the comic books came first. And then the t-shirt designs, I mean, again, it's the same sort of a thing. I mean, you still have to study like, perspective and anatomy and all the things that you have to study to do comic books well. But what I find is as I study and make more and more comics, I get better at the t-shirt designs. And in fact, I've taken a lot of classes at CE. So I've taken like Soto's coloring class, which looms large in my, like the comic book coloring process that I use really comes from Soto, from a process standpoint. Because even though like when I went to school, like, so I got out of the Marine Corps in 1995 and I went to school for computer graphics and learned Photoshop there and stuff like that. But learning Photoshop in a college setting is not the same as learning it from the guy who has to color 4 pages a day, right? The guy who has to color 4 pages a day knows it better than you know it. He knows all the tricks of how to make it like go fast and efficient. So So with Soto, like he got it to the point where he really brought down the amount of time that I need to spend on these. And then there's also a lot of influence from comic book artists. So I was an art moderator on CE for a number of years, and a part of that I would help moderate the classes, including Soto's classes. So I'd get to hear his guest speakers. And so I got to know who the colorists in comics, and I was really influenced by Justin Ponzer was a big influence. Like he has a way of dramatic lighting that you can pinpoint it in my work. Like here's where before I was influenced by Justin Ponzer, and here's like after I was influenced by Justin Ponzer. And another one was Dean White. Watching him, like he came into a class and showed us how he colors and stuff like that. And I saw him doing things that I'm like, oh, like, I think I'm going to incorporate that into my work. So yeah, so like the comic book influences there are large. But then just from a process standpoint, like I'll show you an example. Like, so when I'm doing like comic book layouts, and this is from, I did these layouts as a part of, not that everybody did layouts in the writing course, but since I draw, I kind of use it as a part of my writing process. But I did the writing course last year. And let's see. So like I do my layouts on like 3x5 cards, just really small, because you can roll through them really fast. And I take that process and I apply it to the like here's like more, like this is the cover for Space Corps. So this is the cover for the issue that we kickstarted. So this isn't the one that's coming out. This is issue 0. Issue 1 is what's coming out. But like here's the cover, but that's the initial sketch, right? So I use the same process for t-shirts. So I take 3x5 cards, I do my little itty bitty sketch, show it to the customer, get it approved, and then I move on from there. And so that comic book making process is what I apply to the t-shirt designs. And you find that it's not rare, right? Like there are lots of artists out there that started and got good by making comics. I forget their names, but the people who started Steven Universe, like my daughter's a big fan, so she got the book, and they were talking about like her and her brother would make comics as kids, and her brother wanted to get good at drawing birds, so he made a comic about birds to force him to draw birds from every angle, because that's what a comic book will make you do. I mean, you can turn that stuff around in your head. Again, it's a very different kind of a way of drawing than observational drawing. When somebody that just describes something to you and you got to pull it out of thin air, there's a certain way of approaching that and a certain kind of set of skills that you have to have. Yeah. So yeah, this is how I spend my time. At this point, I'm coming up on my 3,000th design, not exclusively for the Marines. I mean, I've done all 4 services, done police, firefighters, that sort of a thing. So it's because of my relationship to the Marine Corps, it's mostly Marine Corps stuff, but it's not exclusive. It's just kind of who keeps calling me, I guess.
And I guess where can people find where, in addition to comics experience and comic experience publishing, where can people reach out to you if they actually want to bring you in to do a design for themselves?
You're probably contacting me like right now on my Facebook page is the best thing to do. I mean, everything that I do, I mean, I don't advertise or anything like that. It's all word of mouth at this point. I mean, people kind of, who know me, I should advertise more, but but yeah, I mean, I keep pretty busy. So, like at this point, I mean, I definitely work a lot. So, so yeah, but Facebook probably is the best place to reach out to me. Like Gannon Beck. I mean, I'm one of very few Gannon Becks on Facebook, and I'm the bald one. So, and some of these are like what's really cool about these. What I've been doing for the last 18 years, it's a kind of reporting, because when I do these, like I'm not coming up with the designs. Like the people in the units come up with the designs. They tell me what they want. They tell me what text they want. They tell me what image they want me to draw. Sometimes they'll give me a sketch. Sometimes it'll be just a description. But what I've been doing for the last, 18 years is kind of recording the psychology of warfighters. I mean, I speak perfect, I'm perfectly fluent in my Marinese. So when they tell me what they want, I understand kind of what they're going for. I understand the mentality. But I've done this through all through the wars in Afghanistan. Not from the beginning of Afghanistan. That started in 2001. I didn't start doing this till 2003, but certainly all through the war in Iraq. I was on a daily basis talking to people in combat zones on satellite phones and that sort of a thing, and they're telling me what they want on their shirt. So this is how they want to be seen, how they want to be represented, and you can see certain trends. You can tell, during the course of the war, you could tell when morale's high, when it's low, when people are amped up, when they're bored. All those things you can kind of see reflected in the t-shirt designs. Officer Candidate School in particular, they're taking civilians and getting them into a war fighting mindset. And there you see trends that go along with that. Getting something that's kind of tongue in cheek. Well, I mean, they're all kind of a little bit tongue in cheek, but going just straight humor at OCS usually isn't the way to go. It's usually blood and guts kind of a thing, because of the mentality that they're trying to wake people up to. Because if they're especially during the wars, I mean, you had people going straight from their training going over to Iraq and Afghanistan. So even though they have fun with these t-shirts, there's something that's really serious that's underneath and underpinning the whole thing, really life and death type things. Again, quite literally. So again, even though that they have fun with it, it's great for morale. Some of it's tongue in cheek. Underneath it's deadly serious. The jobs that they have to do and to be prepared to do.
And how did this? I know we talked a lot about Space Corps, the actual comic last time, but I mean, it's really fascinating what you just said. Where I guess because this is a very unusual war comic in space. I think there's a lot of folks. Yeah. I mean, it's very personal. It can be grim, it can be strange, but it's definitely different than anything I think a lot of folks have read. And it sounds like a lot of your personal experience, not just serving yourself, but also working with the Marines on these shirts, has informed what the story is, what the makeup is of the comic.
Right. So I mean, there's a couple big influences in terms of that, and the t-shirts is one, because with the t-shirts, I talk to everybody. I mean, all ranks from privates and lance corporals all the way up to for the t-shirts up to lieutenant's colonel and that sort of a thing. In my graphic design work, I've even talked to retired commandants and stuff like that. I mean, I've spanned the full spectrum of the rank structure. And again, for the t-shirts, I've done almost 3,000 of these. So I've talked to literally thousands of Marines of all different occupational specialties, all different ranks, all different experiences and backgrounds. And because I don't have rank myself, I mean, a lance corporal can't talk casually to an officer, right? There's a certain protocol that governs that conversation. But since I don't have rank, I mean, I can talk to everybody, informally. And because I'm talking to them about how they want to see themselves, how the unit wants to be seen, it gives me a really, not just an interesting perspective on the military, but I think a unique perspective on the military. There aren't. I can't think of anybody else that's done quite this, and because of that, it gives me this unique perspective on people and the people who serve, and the structure of the organization in a way that I filter through, and it gets into the book. So that's definitely one big influence. The other big influence, and you really see this in issue 1. This is several years ago. It's kind of like Marine Corps protocol when you're around other Marines, you introduce yourself as a Marine. So if you go to a new job and you find out that there's somebody else who served, it's etiquette to go introduce yourself and say hello. So several years ago, I was going to like Smoothie King, and it was right by the recruiting station. So I walked in and introduced myself to the recruiters. Said hi, I served, just wanted to introduce myself. And he was a gunnery sergeant. I mean, I don't know if he wants me to mention his name, but he's a gunnery sergeant that had way too many combat tours, like 4 or 5 combat tours, something like that. I think he's a staff sergeant at the time. He got promoted later, or I can't remember. Anyways, so I walked in and he's like, "Hey, we're PTing 3 times a week. He's like, why don't you come out and PT with the police?" And I was like, "Well, I'm not in good running shape." He's like, "It doesn't matter, neither are they." So I did. I started coming out and working out with the kids in my neighborhood who were going into not just the Marine Corps. We would run this PT program, and we had people from the other recruiting, Navy, Air Force. They would come and PT with us also, just because we were there, and everybody was welcome. But I did that for about 3.5 years. So I got to know all the kids in my community that were going into the service, and I got to see, meet their parents. So I got an interesting perspective of the parental perspective. And you'll see in chapter 2, which is in issue 1, the gunnery sergeant is the only person I'm straight up quoting, other than cleaning up the language. I have, I'll try to keep it kind of PG-13. But I'm pretty, and he knows it's him. I've talked to him about it. He knows the character is based on him. I mean, you can't really miss it. Like I said, I'm pretty much quoting him. But that issue in particular is inspired by the recruiting experience, and again, I don't think that that's something that's been fictionalized. You see the boot camp fictionalized, but not the recruiting. But I wanted to capture that, because it's not just capturing the person who's going in. In America, we typically recruit people in high school. So they're 17 years old, typically, when they're getting recruited. And you cannot enlist by yourself at 17. You have to get parental permission. So it's a family decision. And so I wanted to kind of show the parental perspective of what it's like for parents to send their kids off to war. So I wanted to explore that a little bit, because I've seen it happen. I've seen, parents, that mixture of pride and apprehension that they have as they're sending their kids off. There's one parent, she had visited her son at Camp Lejeune after boot camp, and he'd gone through his training, and she visited him at Camp Lejeune, and when they left, she was crying, and she told, and this is her and her husband were telling me this. And she was crying, and she her husband's like, "Why are you crying? He's looking great. He's in good spirits. He's doing really well." And she was crying because the boy was gone from him. The person who went to boot camp, that person, even though he was fine and healthy, it wasn't her little boy anymore. And she was kind of mourning the loss of that a little bit. So that's, even if the kids come back, I think the parents know they're going to be different people when they come back, and it's true. I mean, you grow up really fast in the military. I mean, not not fully. I mean, we still we all mature through life, but a 19-year-old in the military is very different than a 19-year-old. Probably in any other walk of life. I mean, it's you have a little bit more time. My daughter right now is going to college at James Madison University, and she's 19, and she's she's having a very different experience than what I had when I was 19. She has a little bit more time to kind of to develop and grow, and she doesn't have to do it at lightning speed. Whereas in the military, you have to get up to speed really fast. You have kids that have gone through Iraq and Afghanistan, making life and death decisions at 19 years old. And so, I try to really capture that in the writing. So it's I mean, that's the great thing about fiction, right? You smuggle the truth in there. Hey, this is this is all made up, but some of it's based on real things, and that's, I think that's the beauty of fiction.
And I guess one last question before we break, but um, what you've talked a lot about uh, what this comic not just means to you, but you hopefully for any of your readers, especially those who served. But is there anything specific that you want them to take away, especially folks currently serving,
Right.
from reading this?
Well, I would say the same thing with all my art. Like, and this goes to the T-shirt art and that sort of a thing. Like when they look at my art, I want them to feel appreciated. Like I want them to feel like they got my best. I want them to not feel like anything was dialed in. I mean, that's why I try so hard on these, because when they open it, and I've seen it, I've seen like when I've had to deliver things in person, I've seen them open it and like literally like high five each other. Like, I mean, like that's a cool feeling. So it gives them that morale boost. So I want that to come through. And I want, I want them to, if they're on active duty, I want them to open it and to read it and to feel like they know people in it, because they do. I mean, they're going to know the types, right? They're going to see themselves in it. They're going to see people that they know in it, because it's made up of people that I've seen and know. It's very, very little of it is autobiographical. I'm like, it's really not about me, except to the extent that there's something that's completely universal that everybody experiences. I mean, those things I tap into, but like my inspirations for it come from um, the people that I've met. Like, and in fact, I talk about that parental relationship and the parents that have apprehensive attitudes towards it. Um, my parents were very supportive about. My dad was a Marine, so my parents were very supportive about me going in. Now I went in 1990, and like I'm sorry, not the Iraq War, the Gulf War started when I was in boot camp. Like it was, we had to lead up to it going in. My older brother was with 1st Battalion, 8th Marines at the time. I actually stayed with him right before boot camp. He dropped me off on the bus to go down to Paris Island. But the war started while I was there. They rolled in a TV. They turned it on, and they basically said, hey, we're at war and you're going, and then they walked out, like, and that was it. Like, I think for us, I think it was the company commander walked in and said that, and it was like a wake up call for anybody who didn't take it seriously. Now it all ended before I even graduated boot camp, so like I graduated to like a hero's welcome that I didn't deserve, right? Like, so on my boot camp leave, you're walking around, you're dressed blues and that sort of thing, and you're just getting like all these free sodas and stuff like that. People just see you and they want to be appreciative. So I had that experience. I feel like I got my brother's soda, while he was sitting in a hole in somewhere in the Middle East. I was getting all this praise showered on me that I didn't deserve, right? Um, but during that, like, but when the war was going on, I was at boot camp. My older brother was there in the infantry, and my dad, who was still on active duty, requested orders to go. And my mom, who's a very patriotic woman, she was the one who encouraged us all. She said, hey, we live in a great country. You should give something back. She didn't necessarily say military service, but that was her one of the big things that she tried to instill in us. And but when the war happened, like, her instinct was, she's like, I want to snatch all of you up and take you to Canada, right? Like, it's that maternal instinct can be very conflicting, like where you want your kids to be people that do stand up and contribute, but on the other hand, you want to keep them safe, right? And that's I've seen that played out many times. I think it's a very natural thing, and I try to capture that in the book.
And I think you certainly did. I mean, like, I can't wait for folks to be able to read this. And retailers and press, if you want a complete preview edition, feel free to hit us up at marketing@cxpublishing.com, and we will send a complete preview copy your way. I think many retailers might have already received it, so feel free to please check your inboxes.
Oh, and let me add one thing. Even though all that stuff I said was really serious, there's funny stuff in it too.
Yes,
there's at least one fart joke. So
well, as we were going through, like last time when we were going through all the covers of upcoming issues, like all the crazy stuff you've got on the covers are only hinting at the crazier stuff going on inside. So yeah, I can't wait for people to get started with this.
Yeah, well, and let me say one thing about that. One of the reasons I wanted to do that was, people who have never been around the military that want to get a sense of what military culture is like what it's like to actually do it. I wanted to give it a sci-fi setting because, there are books out there like With the Old Breed at Peleliu and Okinawa. I mean, you can read about military history, but if that's not your thing, but sci-fi is, again, you can smuggle this stuff in a sci-fi setting. So sci-fi stuff is, I think, again, it's the aliens and characters that we have. I mean, there are some that are really original and very cool. So, if you're just into sci-fi and you're not into the military aspects of it, I've had people like one of the reviews that I love. This lady reviewed it and said, "I did not think I would like this book, but I loved it," and it was, because she was thinking like military stuff isn't my thing, but the sci-fi stuff and the way we approached it like resonated with her. So you don't have to be in the military to love this book. I mean, I want to be really clear about that. If you've ever liked like Green Lantern, like that kind of a thing where you've got like really cool, interesting aliens, doing really cool, interesting alien stuff, like, this book has got it too. And I'll tell a joke on occasion.
And on that note, not going to end with a joke. I'm going to end with a thank you. Thank you for your service, Gannon. Thank you for your comic. Again, I can't wait for people to get their hands on it. And it was a pleasure and honor to help get this into shops.
Yeah, I can't wait. I'm super excited about it.
Okay. Well, thanks everyone for joining us. We're going to have another live stream next Tuesday with the creators of Charlie's Spot. That's going to be a really interesting comic to talk about. Some really interesting cover treatments as well that I'm looking forward to sharing. So yeah, until next time, we will check you out later. Talk to you soon.